civil entrepreneur, having worked in the field of IT and renewable energy, large biogas plants, biogas power, and bio-CNG. So he's also back in 2012, after his company was bought out, he decided to give back to society in whatever way possible and to work in the development sector. So in 2013, he has joined BAIF, Development and Research Foundation, Pune, India, as an honorable advisor on renewable energy. Uh, Apart from this, he's actually this company is also working on the biofarm. And may I ask anyone to please kindly mute? Right, okay. So BF is, just to give you an overview about BAIF, is a grassroots development NGO that was established back in 1967, and he is also the founder trustee of NGO called Sun Club Medi Education Society. So he, together with the BF Pano, has developed a low cost and compact and user-friendly ABF slurry filter, patent applied jointly with BAF for filtering of the biogas slurry into slurry cake and a liquid for family-sized biogas plants. So I would like to welcome on board Mr. Chandan. I would like to formally hand over the session to you. And Mr. Chandan will be discussing focus on the biogas residue management and how biofilm impacts financials and impact on climate, soil, and farmers. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, Chandan was having some net issues. So what we'll play a recorded video, and he will be joining for answering the questions directly. So I'm going to play a recorded video to save time, which we have
Sure,
here.
please. Please go ahead, please.
So let me know if the audio is like if it's audible as well.
Good evening to all SARC professionals and other members, and thank you SARC Energy Center and IIT Roorkee for inviting me to give this presentation. It couldn't have come at a more appropriate time because the importance of biogas has become very critical because of the existing climate change issue. Though I have done a lot of projects on biogas applications like large power generation plants on biogas or biogas to bio-CNG plants, today my subject is residue management and value addition on the biogas projects and how we can improve the financial viability of biogas plants. So here is the content of my presentation. I will try and speak for 30 minutes and we'll keep 10 minutes for Q&A. Let's see how it goes. So essentially, what is the need to have a different outlook towards the residue management? What is the current state of utilization of residues? How do we create the opportunity to better the project viability? Then we'll talk of a product called Bioprom, which is a value-added product developed on residue. Why is it unique? The field trial results I will share with you on this product. What is the financial impact of this product on the biogas project? Challenges and policy suggestions, and about the NGO where I am an honorary advisor called BIF, based out of Pune. The learnings will be on similar grounds, that is why residue capture is important, how do we create opportunity on that, how do we improve financial viability, and again something about Bioprom and how it can change the financial viability of the project. So apart from the importance of financial viability, there is also a very important need to look at value addition to the residue. And this is what I have stated here. And we are observing that our soils are getting depleted very fast. Their health is reducing because we are using too much of chemical fertilizer. The microflora in the soil is reducing, moisture retaining capacity is reducing, and as a consequence of that, the productivity of our agriculture is coming down heavily. Other than that, it is also an issue where chemical fertilizers are causing pollution in the downstream, and there are health issues due to excess use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. In most of the SAARC countries, I am sure that foreign forex outflow and the subsidy component is also a very high burden on the exchequer. I've already mentioned about climate change, and soil carbon will play a very important role in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I think residue management will play a significant role in terms of the mitigation of climate change. So changing of mindset is the need of the hour. And at the same time, by doing that, we are also trying to improve the financial viability of a biogas project. So millions of small biogas plants, family-sized biogas plants were installed in the past, and they have been considered as failure. The reason is that we have hogged the biogas part to the hilt, while we have ignored the other important component called slurry. And this is, I am showing here that slurry normally, typically is either wasted or not used properly. So how do we capture the slurry or the residue? And I will quickly talk on the small biogas plant and then move on to the large plants. So this is what we have done in BIOF, where we have created a filter where the slurry is captured. The filter has two components. One is the top part and the second is the bottom part. You can see here, the slurry comes in and it is kept for 24 hours, where it slowly trickles down and the liquid is captured at the bottom, and at the top we get the cake. And you can see in the third picture that this is the cake that comes out of the filter, and here we can collect the liquid. Both these are value added products where we can convert them into, say, vermicompost, and the liquid also can be put into the soil. Now, because there is a need, there is also an opportunity for us to focus on. And this first line, I think, is one of the key lines in my presentation. That means if we have to create opportunity, what we need to do is we need to have a paradigm shift in converting residue from being a byproduct to being a product. Now, I will tell you more on this, why I'm saying this. We can improve the financial viability by focusing more on the value addition side of the residue. Now, that is exactly what we have done at BIOF. Now, BIOF has developed a very good option for converting residue into a product called BioPrompt. It is biological phosphate-rich organic manure. It's one of the options to convert residue into value-added products. But the potential for this product is huge because it can reduce or replace chemical phosphatic fertilizers. So the market for this is really, really big. The other thing is it has a high phosphate percentage. So, and it is organic. So it is good for organic farmers. Now we have got two models. One is the institutional bioprom unit, which is for large institutional levels like sugar mills or dairy, where the cow dung intake is very high. Sugar, of course, we can look at press mud as one of the sources. You must have already gone through various papers prior to this where all the substances and inputs have been discussed. And the other model is the small size model based on IRISA. We call it cluster bioprom unit, where 100 IRISA farmers can come together and form one common bioprom unit. So these are the two formats in which we have developed this particular bioprom unit. So what is bioprom? Well, bioprom is nothing but biological phosphate-rich organic manure, and it is produced by taking the residue plus rock phosphate and a special microbial inoculum which BIOF has developed for making bioprom. Now, this bioinoculum is a consortia of soil and plant beneficial microbes, and the effects on the mixture is extremely good. The total phosphate content in the bioprom is always more than 12%. So what is so unique about this product? Well, as a starter, it is a 3-in-1 product. The first is that bioprom can reduce or replace chemical phosphatic fertilizers. I think this I've already mentioned, but this is a really big thing. Second, it is almost like a biofertilizer. And why I say this, because the total microbial count in the bioprom is almost like a biofertilizer. So the value that you can get in the market can be compared to a biofertilizer. And third, it is completely organic. So it is very good for organic farmers or where districts are declared as organic districts. Bioprom can play a very important role. The other point I want to mention is it has a property where the phosphate is not fixed to the soil. Now, I'll explain to you what phosphate fixing is. Many of you from agriculture background may already know this. So typically, what happens with chemical phosphatic fertilizers like DAP and SSP is that when you put, say, 100 kilos of phosphate into the soil, out of 100 kilos, 70 kilos is fixed or locked into the soil because of various parameters like pH and other parameters. And only 30% or 30 kilos is available to the plant. So we are putting excess capacity of phosphatic fertilizers into the soil. In bioprom, this phenomena does not occur, or even if it occurs, it is very, very less. So we are saving the phosphates over there. Now, typically, this bioprom production is a very simple process. Now, if you look at the left photograph, this is where, before this is your biogas plant, and this is a slurry separator. From the slurry separator, you get the solids and the liquid is separated. From here, the solids are taken after drying. We need a dryness factor of less than 20%. It is taken to a blender where we inoculate this particular cake with rock phosphate and mix it properly. The product that comes out can be bagged directly. So the advantage is that there is no need for windrows, or there is no need for aero tillers to be used, or large land requirement for processing this. This is a very big advantage in the way we approach the production. Then the material is screened and then it is bagged. Very, very simple process. The slurry that comes out also can be value added, as you can see here, and this also can fetch revenue for the biogas project. Now, this is the most important slide of my presentation because it gives the reason why we can move from the residue being called as byproduct to product. So let us look at, I have given two examples here. One is on cow dung, the second is on press mud. The first, cow dung based biogas model. So suppose we have to, we need a gas production of 1200 meter cubes. That will need a cow dung requirement of 30 tons per day. Now, from the residue, if you make compost, for example, you will get about 2 tons per day of compost. But if you make bioprom out of it, you can get about 4 tons of bioprom per day. Now, because bioprom is value added, if you look at the profitability from compost, it is only 5,400 rupees per day, but profit from bioprom is coming to about 21,000. So there is a value add factor of almost 4 times. So from 5,400 to 21,000, which is 4 times increase in profitability. The same case, if you take a press mud biogas plant, this is especially for sugar mills, if you are looking at large projects, where you need to generate about 12,000 meter cubes of biogas per day. Typically for 1 megawatt of power generation, you will need 12,000 meter cubes. You will need press mud of about 100 tons per day. Here again, the same situation, that profit from compost comes to around 31,000 and profit from bioprom comes to about 104,000 rupees per day. So here again, the factor of increase in profitability is almost 3 times. Now, because of this jump in profitability, if you compare it with the other product that you may have for biogas application, so if you take power generation and calculate your profitability, or you convert into bio-CNG and look at that profitability, the profitability from bioprom and profitability from power or bio-CNG is almost same. So from becoming a byproduct, basically bioprom is now looking more like a product. So because it is phosphatic fertilizer and the market is huge, such large quantities can be possible to be sold in the market as compared to just mere compost. So this is an important factor that I wanted to share with you, that if you add value to the residue that is coming out, bioprom is just one option. There could be many other options. You can try other options as well. But because I said that market for bioprom can be huge, therefore we feel bioprom will be a very appropriate solution for residue management. We then went on to validate the product in the fields. So we took about 35 farmers in Maharashtra, that is the western part of India, and it was the trials were conducted on 3 crops, that is wheat, gram, and onion. There were what we observed when we compared with using phosphatic fertilizers versus bioprom, there was a significant difference in the yield, which was superb. And as a consequence of that, we realized that bioprom can become a good replacement to the phosphatic fertilizers. We simultaneously did a study at the Agri University on onions and grams. And there too, if you observe, treatment number 5 and treatment number 7, you can see that the output, the yield on bioprom as compared to RDF, which is the recommended dose of fertilizers, at the university level also gave the same result on onion and also on gram. So the validation of this product also has been done very nicely. About our organization, I think BIOF has been working since 1967 and it has a lot of achievements to its kind of work that they have done. And I would suggest if anybody is interested to look more on it, a lot of details are given on the website. It's www.biof.org.in. In the last 7 years, we have focused on the IRISA and bioprom units. And till date, we have set up about 1,000 IRISA plants successfully. We have done 6 bioprom units at cluster level, 1 unit at institutional level, 3 more bioprom units are coming up. This we've developed this bioinoculum called LOF, which is showing a lot of effectiveness on the bioprom production. And as I had said earlier, that we have done field trials at the farmers level and also at the government university with different crops and at different locations. Well, not everything is hunky-dory. There are challenges ahead, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talking to you all is discussing about challenges and also trying to get suggestions from you all. So awareness creation is a very important part because bioprom is not known by farmers, and we need to reach out and tell them the importance of products like bioprom. Market development again becomes very, very critical, especially in the agriculture field, and low cost funding availability also is a challenge. So if there are people from the government, it's a good possibility to create initiatives where we create a level playing field of value-added products like bioprom with chemical phosphatic fertilizers. So whatever is available to chemical phosphatic fertilizers should be made available to value-added products like bioprom. Creating awareness campaign at a national level, incentivizing people to set up slurry filters for their small plants, or setting up bioprom units should be supported by the government. And one of the key things that the government can do is make 5% offtake mandatory for the fertilizer companies so that it creates a market for such units. In terms of relevance of the products or value-added products like bioprom, I think it is very clear that we are importing significant amount of chemical fertilizers. India is importing almost 80% of its phosphatic fertilizers. and it's also importing 80% or maybe a little bit less of its LPG gas. Both biogas and bioprom can support in terms of reducing the dependence significantly, and the forex and the subsidy can be reduced drastically. In terms of the cow dung availability or organic matter availability like pressed mud, I think all the SAARC nations should have significant amount of raw material which we can efficiently use in trying to develop value-added products, bioprom being one, and trying to make our soils, our productivity, our agriculture, our farmers strong. So, and in doing so, we create a financial viability for our biogas projects. So, key points are that mindset change from a byproduct of a residue to making it a product. As soon as you start looking at making it as a product, you will get a lot of possibilities and a lot of options to value add and improve your revenue income. So with that, I think I have tried to share as much knowledge as possible, and I would be happy to take questions. I'm sure there'll be a lot, and I'll try and answer as many questions as possible. So thank you once again for your patient hearing, and look forward to your Q&A. Oh yeah, there's one more slide, and by doing this, we are creating win-win at 4 different levels: at the farmer, at the soil, at the nation, and also at the global level, where if you see, there are 6 or 7 SDG goals that can be satisfied through such kind of projects. So yeah, so that is my last slide, and thank you so much.
So, Edmund, do we have Mr. Chandan with us? Hello.
Yeah, I think Chandan has joined. So,
Okay.
Mr. Chandan, I believe I request you to kindly unmute yourself. I think he is there. So, can
Yes,
you hear
okay.
us?
Mr. Chandan, can you hear us?
Yeah. Good evening to everyone, and I'm extremely sorry for this technical glitch happens, but I'm here now, and whatever questions, as I said, that you all may have, I will try and answer it just now, or even afterwards on the email, this can be answered.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Mr. Chandan. Although you were not present there for this presentation, but still, I mean, the way you delivered the presentation and the lecture was recorded, I mean, we felt like you were almost there with us. So thank you once again for joining us and also delivering this wonderful and indeed very informative presentation. So I have a couple of questions lined up, and I really want first of all, Mr. Chandra, Ms. Chandra, if you can kindly unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Such a wonderful and very clear presentation. This is my question is regarding the biofilm. Actually, you were talking about the some biological process. Would you mind to say that what are the bacteria that you are using there as the in the production of the biofilm, and how that process is happening bit clearly for me, please, and when it is becoming as a biofertilizer actually.
Okay, good question to start with. So, Chandra ma'am,
Thank you.
we use basically a consortium of bacteria.
Yes.
So you, as you know, rock phosphate is basically having a lot of phosphates in it, but it has
That's
to be
right.
phosphates have to be made soluble. Whether you make it soluble outside or in the soil, wherever it is, it has to be made soluble. There's some disturbance.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah. Hello, I can hear you, please.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
so the consortia is basically bacteria consisting of phosphate solubilizing bacteria, but we are also adding nitrogen fixers and bacteria like Pseudomonas and Subtilis, because they are, they help in growth promotion and they also are plant protectors. So it is a consortia of multiple bacteria. And as today you can read in the news that when you make a cocktail, the effect is much better. So this consortia is acting quite well actually in the soil.
Thank you. That's why I just for the consortia. Actually, it's having the nitrogen fixation bacteria as well. Apart from the phosphate solubilizing, you get the nitrogen fixation also there. So that's why you go as a consortia. Am I right?
Yes. So it is a holistic approach.
That's right.
So nitrogen can be taken from the soil by the bacteria because they are fixed. And we have Pseudomonas, which is a plant protector and PGPR, and some other bacteria like Subtilis also are growth promoters. So therefore, it is a all composite kind of a package.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. So the next question I would like to take from Mr. Nandasri, Ms. Nandasri Veera Singh. Yes, are you there with us, Miss Nandasri Veera Singh?
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. And I think it's a very good approach what I see from the various points of view. So I am from Sri Lanka. Now in Sri Lanka, we have this Epavil rock phosphate, where the solubility is very low. So then when you are making this, there any specific acidic conditions or any specific areas to be think about when you put the phosphorus in to get into the high solubility of the phosphorus in your, the cocktail. And second one, if there is any specific, the package of microbes that you have to put, or you can just get into the free microbes and it will freely get the microbes for this process inside. Thank you. These are the questions.
Okay, if I have understood the question correctly, you all have acidic soils in Sri Lanka. Is that what you're saying?
No, we have acidic soils.
Yes.
But at the same time, we have the phosphate, rock phosphate. It is called this Epavil rock phosphate, but which is very low solubility.
Yeah.
So if the solubility can increase in a very high acidic conditions, and if there is any technology that you can incorporate this rock phosphate and get a high solubility in your process.
So this is exactly what this bioprom is doing. So bioprom is a combination of organic matter which is coming from your biogas plants, which is digested. So it is a good food for microbes. And then we have got this consortia of bacteria and then rock phosphate. So as a combination of this, when you put it in soil, if it is acidic soil, in fact, the results could be much better. But in agriculture, all these results have to be tried locally as a demonstration, because each soil is of different types. So, but if you look at the science part of it, I think it should operate better in acidic soils. The second question was regarding
bacteria in a specific.
Yeah. We have developed this. So we have developed this recipe, and it's called LOF, organic fertilizer. And what we are doing is we are giving it as a mother culture to the customer, and customers have a multiplication unit at the site, on-site multiplication. So the mother culture is given, and then this whole scale up is done at the bioprom plant itself. So yes, that can be it can be made available.
Thank you.
Okay, so the any other question? So is there any other questions from the participants?
Yes, I would like to ask one question. Srinivas Kasula.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, Chandan
Yes,
sir, the presentation. Hello.
Yes,
yeah,
please
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Shivanas.
Yes, Chandan sir, the presentation was excellent. Only have one question. When you have considered 7 rupees for the capital cost of that per kg of ROM, so does it also include the organic manure cost from the biogas plant? Or if it includes, then what would be the price you have assumed per kg of organic manure directly from the biogas plant in terms of pressment plant?
No, so for this we have not included the cost of cow dung because as a prom unit, it's a part of the biogas unit itself. So cost is already factored into the biogas plant. So we have not considered in that 7 rupees. But if you add like what we are doing in our projects, we take it at 5 rupees a kg per dry matter.
Okay.
That's the cost that we consider.
Okay, so assuming if I get at around 3 rupees organic manure from any press mud based plant, will it be feasible if I sell that 3 rupees manure? So additional 7 rupees it would be there for prom or additional 5 rupees?
No, so basically, instead of 7 rupees, it might go to 8 rupees, the cost. So, say a 50 kg bag will cost you about 400 to 425 rupees.
Okay, okay, yeah. Thank you, Chandan.
But still, even
Yes.
if you consider all this cost, if you look at the revenue side and compare it with the revenue of your biogas applications like power generation or bio-CNG, it stands tall with the other products. So essentially, it is moving from being a byproduct to a product, and it should get that respect.
Yes, that goes without saying.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chandan, for this presentation and addressing the questions of the participants. And now I would like to quickly move on to our next presentation for today. And this next session will be on techno-economic analysis, will be on feasibility and scalability of biogas plants, economic analysis, environment, and social benefits. And this will be delivered by Professor Pratham Arora. So he'll be discussing about the techno-economic analysis to estimate the economic performance of biogas plants, their life cycle assessment to certain the environmental performance, socio-economic impacts of commercial scale biogas plants with some exemplary case studies. So over to you, Professor Pratham Arora. Just to give you a brief intro, he is currently an assistant professor, Department of Hydro and Renewable Energy, IIT Roorkee. Prior to joining IIT Roorkee, he was the postdoctoral fellow at Georgia Tech Atlanta in Industrial and Systems Engineering Department. So at Georgia Tech, his research was focused on process optimization, enviro-economic analysis, and life cycle assessment of algal biofuels, synth gas fermentation, and solar fertilizers and direct air capture. So over to you, Professor Pratham Arora, for your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Qureshi, for the welcome. And let me share my screen as well. I hope the slides are visible to everyone. Can someone please confirm?
Yes,
if
it's
the slides are
visible.
visible?
It's visible
Yes,
to
yes,
us.
it's
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. Okay, so it has been a great experience to be part of this course so far. We had many nice speakers, including today, and the question answers were really enlightening. So to take the discussion further, I will be focusing upon three things today. The first one will be techno-economic analysis, then comes life cycle assessment, and then we'll also try to dive into the world of socio-economic impacts. Now, with respect to the techno-economic analysis, I believe a great deal has already been covered by my previous speakers. And I believe after my session also, there's going to be an interesting session that would be focusing upon the techno-economics of a plant in Pakistan. So for this particular part, I've tried to include the things that have been left over by the other speakers. Then I would also like to take through like how do we quantify the environmental performance of a plant. We'll briefly try to explain you the concept of life cycle assessment, and then take you through some socioeconomic impacts or studies that have been done in the SAARC regions about the impact of a biogas plant. So the whole session would be basically to get an understanding of sustainability. Now, a standard definition of sustainability, if you consider in this book, would consist of three things. The first one would be economics. So that is something that makes the world go round. No plant, like anything we do has some economic parameters behind it. But slowly with the rising temperatures or the climate change or global warming potential, people have now started to underline the ecological facts as well. We need to take care of the ecology, lest ecology is not going to take care of us. And this is something that we can't take for granted for long. And then there's a social aspect as well. We need to see that people are having a justifiable and like a standard of life that is comparable to any part of the world. That is something they like. This is something like that is they deserve. And all three of them put together renders a technology sustainable or not. So for any technology to be sustainable, one thing is that we just go by economic point of view, and if it's giving you some profit, you go ahead. If it's not, yeah, you can leave it. That was the point of view that has been running the world since the industrial evolution. But taken today, there is a whole new paradigm shift where like companies are made to disclose the ESG profile. By ESG, by environmental, social, governance profile. The social and the environmental prospects are equally important. This phenomena has now captured Europe and Americas, and slowly, I believe SAARC is not going to stay behind in this. So we should be paying due respect to these two aspects as well. So I'll go one by one. So let's start with techno-economic assessment. Now, techno-economic assessment by the basic definition goes like you make different designs, different process designs, come up with a mass and energy balance, like how much mass inputs is going, how much value you are putting in the terms of capex and opex, what are the outputs, and then try to quantify what could be the profits. It also needs that you make different process configurations so as you understand what are the bottlenecks in the process, try to remove them. You also try to see what is the latest research going in, and if possible, include the research in your study. And up till now, in many countries, biofuel still required support of the financial support from the government. But now it is being proposed, and it is being evident in the form of like large-scale biogas plants as well, that it would be able to compete on its own. Specifically, when we are giving due importance to the purification of natural gas, as well as we are making an efficient use of side products. An interesting example was that of biochrome that we saw in the last presentation. Plus, we also have something coming up which is called the learning effects. We are learning from past mistakes which people have done, and we are trying to improve with the supply chains, the conversion, as well as the sale of the products. We are gaining from the large-scale operations, which means the larger the plant, the lesser is going to be the cost of production. And we are also going for efficient system integration, which means we're making efficient utilization of all the products that is coming in. And this is help bringing down the energy cost for running the plant as well as optimize the production of various products. This is what a typical techno-economic analysis would start with. You would start with a process development. It could be based on a process simulation. You come up with a process flow diagram, and based on the process flow diagram, this is going to give you the major equipment, the mass and energy balance, and also the preliminary equipment sizes, like what would be the volume of the equipment that would be needed. Based upon that, you can do an economic assessment, and from the economics, you can go to a profitability analysis. This is the normal way you would start with the techno-economic analysis. And this techno-economic analysis can be done on different levels. Okay, before that, with respect to the process simulation, this is something how your process simulation can be done. Like there are different softwares which are available in the market. I just gave you a preview of one of the softwares which we are using at IIT Roorkee. This is called Aspen Plus. It's one of the state-of-the-art softwares for providing mass and energy balance. And here you can see in this simulation has been prepared for the upgrading of biogas to a usable bio-CNG product. And this very well gives us the different kind of energy that will be going to the compression or the conversion, as well as the different outputs, as well as the makeups, as well as the purge streams. So these kinds of softwares are very handy if you want to get a very realistic output of what the mass balance is going to look like in reality. And these are all based on kinetics as well as thermodynamics. Now coming to the different types of techno-economic analysis, these can be based on different classes. So what we do at the university level is normally class 5 or class 4, which is on a very high level, I would say. The preparation effort is very less. The accuracy is not very great, but this gives you a basic feasibility whether you should go for the plant or the process or not. Then at the other end, you have the project developers, which would be working at the class levels, class 1 study, which is based upon like first-hand experiences as well as deterministic ways of guiding all the cost. And these are much closer to reality. So there's a somewhat of difference, like the way studies are done by universities like us or the different think tanks or NGOs, as well as the industry. And there are different levels to it. What we do is at the level 4 or 5, because there are many assumptions that go into it. What the industry would be doing is the level 1 estimate. But it's always a good way to start with level 5 and go to level 1. And this is how they proceed. The advantage is that while you're doing a level 4 or level 5 estimate, the cost is very less, whereas the cost increases almost 10 to 100 times when you go for a level 1 estimate. What are the things involved? First thing, we need to understand that every technology has a learning curve. First, the cost estimates are given by the researchers. They may be sitting in different think tanks or different universities. They'll see this is a good conversion technology. This is where you can fetch in a lot of money. And they sell this technology to industry, or there's a collaboration. The industry sets up a plant. It might be a pilot plant. And the costs are much higher as compared to the initially told by the different researchers. Of course, we are researchers, we are not economists. So we can't give you 100% correct estimate. But another thing that happens, like in the first form of a plant, that you would always go for better material, higher capacity, and more instruments. You need to be safe. You don't want to fail at the first attempt itself. But what happens with time, as the time proceeds, the cost goes down. Because it's a learning experience. You learn from their predecessors. You don't want to repeat their mistakes. The supply line is set up. You know who the different suppliers are. And you tend to decrease the cost. And this is what is expected to happen in the large-scale biogas plants as well. We have reached this peak. We are somewhere here. And as time proceeds, the cost is going to go down because the learning in this field is increasing with every day. The experience is coming both from the industry, as we have been seeing in the lectures, and there is learning that is coming from the researchers as well. Another thing we need to keep into mind while doing a techno-economic analysis is the plant location. Now, we might come across different studies, and there could be different levels that have been done for different countries, say Germany. Now, Germany is one of the leaders, as well as like the compressed biogas things are concerned, of Sweden. or somewhere in Australia or in the US, they have set up a plant. And if we want to replicate that, we need to take care that a plant there might not cost the same as in India. There are different location factors for every location. And these factors are available both in the open domain, and there are specialized agencies that supply these location factors. Normally, they are against the US Gulf Coast, which is given a factor of 1. And then there could be, like, if you go for China, it would only cost 60%. If you go to India, it's very close, but this is for imported. And if you, on the right-hand side, also give the cost for India, it's almost 70%. And these factors also are a function of time. So if you are referring to a study somewhere outside, and even among like SARC, you say, I would think that the construction cost might be very similar, like in our immediate neighbors like Nepal or Bangladesh, but it could be very different in countries like Maldives, because like a lot of supply chain difference would be there. So we need to take care that if something has a capex of 1 somewhere, it might not be the one elsewhere. There need to be application of cost factors, and this could change the cost significantly. Say something that is having a value of 1 in the US, a construction value might cost almost 60% in China and might cost 1.5% in Russia. It depends upon the economies and the different economies. Another thing we need to keep into mind that there is also the cost index that is dictated by the market. If a plant was constructed 10 years back, it might not cost the same now. Of course, there is inflation, but there's also a cost index that we need to take care of. And there are many cost index which will supply this value. Herein, I give you the example of 4 common cost indexes that are available. The most common one is the chemical engineering plant cost index that will apply for biogas plants. Then there are Marshall and Swift as well as Nelson Ferrer. And they have their own base values corresponding to different years. And their base value starts at 100, and they give you the trend. If some plant was set up, say 5 years back, and if you were to set up the same plant today, what would be the cost difference? And this is something we need to take into account if we want to replicate a plant that was there in the past. So first, I try to explain in the concept of changing geographies. And there is also a concept of changing like with the time. With time, the cost indexes will change. It's not only that they're going to rise, they could even fall because of different geographical regions, different reasons that might be applicable. Then something that we are going to gain at the large scale biogas plant is the economies of scale. To put it simply, it means that if I manufacture something at a bigger scale, the value is going to come less, because there is not a linear rise with respect to the labor that would be employed or the different operations or the energy that is consumed. Higher the operation, like take the simple example of a compressor. If you go for a bigger compressor working at full load, it's going to consume less energy per unit of gas compressed. And also the capex is going to go down. It doesn't have a linear relationship. So the cost of different equipments doesn't increase linearly as we increase the size of the plant. And this is where the advantages can be. And we can see that, like, why is China the global manufacturing hub? Because they're manufacturing everything at a bigger scale. Why is Tesla at the front of the EV market? Because again, they are going at a very large scale and benefiting from the economies of scale. And this is something we can see in the case of biogas as well. And this is just one study which was based in UK, and this was for 4 years back, and they have provided this. So if someone is interested in understanding it, I've given all the references where this tables and values are coming up. You can look at those tables. Then for the techno-economic analysis, you would of course need the capex, and this I believe has been explained by Srinivas in the previous session. And basically, there are 2 things. One is the total capital investment, which would consist of the fixed capital, majorly dominated by your equipment, and then there will be indirect cost with respect to the engineering supervision and contractor fees, contingency, and then there would be working capital, which is basically for running of the plant. So these 2 things are the major factors that dictate your capex. The other thing would be your operating cost. The operating cost would mainly consider of your day-to-day running cost, and this would consist of the direct production cost, mainly comprising of the raw material and the utilities. There would be also manpower that is involved. Then the fixed costs like income taxes, rent, insurance, depreciation, plant overhead in terms of supervision and maintenance. And this is not very big in India, but like general expenses like research and development or financing, we wouldn't go much into that. But this is how the things would be developed. And once you have these costs sorted out, you can prepare a cash flow like this, like the figure on the left-hand side. The cash flows basically will dictate how the cash flows of the profit are going to come. They're not going to come in for the first few years where you're just returning the cash. It's only going to come after a payback period of 3, 4, 5 years. And this is for you to decide if this is a good cash flow for me to go ahead with the plant. So just to give you an example, like point A to B, you will go with the feasibility studies. From B to C, it's the plant construction that is happening. Then from the C to D is the basic running exercise to see if everything is fine. D to E is basically you're commissioning the plant. And from E, you start the plant to run at the full capacity. And there's a point F where we reach a break-even cost. You have recovered everything that you put in. You start towards your profit. This tends to reduce because the plant is nearing its end. And at the end, it's basically the salvage value that you get or some operation that you get. An important point to also take in care is the debt and the equity. So if you're taking a debt, you need to return that, and there is going to be a loan interest that you need to pay. So either the project can be directly funded to the project, or you fund it like a company is putting his or her money, and it is then indirectly taking the money from a bank. So you need to take care of these things, which is normally neglected when you're doing a level 5 analysis. But these things come into play when your economic analysis is increasing in the class. And finally, what you should aim for cash flow diagram, something like this. So I believe in the previous session, some people were asking about like if they can get some cash flow diagram. So here is a source you can look at. So this is a study again, like 3 to 4 years back. And this was again for the UK, where they have given a nice cash flow for their plant. And I believe they also have an Excel calculator, which is available to anyone for non-commercial purposes. So if you need a calculator like this for non-commercial purposes, I believe they have one to share. So that could be one of the places where you can get some tools like this. And this is something that you should be able to get. And you can see in the earlier part, it's going to be negative. And slowly it picks up around 3 to 4 years after that. And you should be able to come up with a net present value based upon the discount rate that you choose. So this discount rate is based upon the company's profile that you choose, and it's basically used to calculate the net present value. And I'm not going into the basics of the economics. I'm leaving that to you. I hope many of you understand that. But given the constraint of the time, like this is how you would end up with an techno-economic analysis. This should give you all the cash flows, giving in all the inputs that are needed. So in this case, you can see the menus as well as the different inputs that is coming in, with the labor cost, the electricity consumption, heat consumption if you are using it for heating during the winter times, and taxes as well. There would be revenues from electricity and heat in case you have a CHP plant. There would be significant revenues from solid and liquid. You can't miss out that. That are one of the things that would help make the plant economically feasible. So this is with respect to the economics. Now let's go to the other pillar of sustainability, which is called the environmental front. And that is normally accomplished using the term called life cycle assessment. So if I go with a very basic definition, it's a compilation of and evaluation of the different inputs, outputs, and the potential environment impacts of a product system throughout its life cycle. So this definition makes everything clear. I believe it's a very simple definition. Overall, it's compiling all the inputs, outputs, and the potential environmental impacts. So the inputs and outputs would basically be coherent with the ones that you have adopted for the economic analysis. And that is one of the reasons why many a times these two things are done in tandem. Like you would normally do the techno-economics and the life cycle assessment together, because the inputs, outputs, and the mass and energy balance is the same. And all the stages are guided by the ISO guidelines, which are quite stringent in this case. Just give you a brief of the LCA. So this LCA came around 50 years back. It started with an initial energy analysis. It started when there was the crisis of the oil crisis in the Gulf, and people thought we need to understand that how to get the energy, and they started with energy analysis. Then came in the resource analysis. Then in the 1990s, when the global warming became prominent, it started with the greenhouse gas assessment, and after the 2000s, it came to be known as life cycle assessment. But the main movement when the life cycle assessment gained prominence was an OECD report, which was entitled Biofuels, Is the Curse Worse Than the Disease? It was in the year 2007. Some of you might want to read this report. And this is what brought prominence to the life cycle assessment. And it was the biofuels, which is one of the topics that we are discussing. So biofuels as such are very good at decreasing the CO2 emissions. But at the same time, we need to take care that the water footprint or the land use change is not that great that does away that or overshadows the CO2 emissions. We all know that global warming is a big problem. It is something that is happening for sure. There's nothing denying that. We recently had the IPCC 7th assessment report a few months back, and you can go through it. There is, I believe, a total consensus now that climate change is there, that is happening, and we need to do something about it. We need to do something about the CO2. And biofuels or biomass energy is a great source of doing it. But again, that has to be done in a sustainable way. Some of the major commonly used matrices in the LCA is the energy demand, global warming, ozone depletion, water footprint, land use. So global warming is one of the things that we are normally hearing whenever environment things come in. But that's not the only thing we should be worried about. There are other things as well. We need to be considered about ozone, water, as well as the land use. These are some things that are making a huge impact as well as biofuels are concerned. Then there are different LCA studies that you would come across in literature that can be done by researchers like us or can be done by different players or NGOs, and they would be adopting different system boundaries. It could be a gate-to-gate approach, cradle-to-gate at the retailer, or cradle-to-grave. And now they're also talking about why not cradle-to-cradle. So it basically starts what all you are including. If you're just including the biogas plant, it's the gate-to-gate approach. You're not concerned where the biomass is coming from. If you take into account, say you're taking into account the growth of energy crops, you should go for a cradle-to-gate approach. If you're also worrying about how the electricity or the natural gas that you're producing is getting used, you should go for a cradle-to-grave approach. And in case you're also looking at biofertilizers, it could be a very nice example of cradle-to-cradle approach, because the biofertilizers would produce more biomass, which can produce more biogas. So you're just completing the cycle and you're working towards a circular economy. And just to give an example, like this is a basic methodology how life cycle assessment occurs. You quantify all the emissions from different places in the your flow sheet or the process, and they could be contributing to different things. And it's not just climate change. Climate change is just one of them. There could be ecotoxicity, acidification, land use, ozone, radiation. So there are a lot of things, and that would give us some midpoint indicators. And finally, we could go for endpoint indicators like human health, how much life of a typical human it is going to reduce, how much effect it is going to have on the ecosystems, and how much resource depletion it is going to happen. And they can be clubbed into a single unit. But most of the time, we are just worried about this one thing, that's climate change or infrared forcing. That's not the case with LCA, it's much more to it. So coming back to the bioenergy systems, which is the focus of us. So if you are reading any LCA studies, this is the kind of studies you are going to come across. There are going to be many studies, but most of them are going to start with the biomass transportation, conversion, distribution, and use. Very few are going to consider about the production of biomass feedstocks, and still very few are going to consider the land use. Let me give you an example. Say you are producing electricity from biomass. Now that electricity is going to replace the electricity that is coming from a coal-based power plant. Now that coal-based power plant, because of the reduction in the demand, might now be running at a part load. Given it running at a part load, its efficiency of running has reduced. It is emitting much more CO2 for its producing of that electricity. And that is also sometimes attributed to the use of biofuels. So you need to, just to give an understanding like how much the LCA studies can delve into. There are some LCA studies which also would go into the indirect emissions, and an example I've given you just now. Then another thing we need to understand is the biogenic carbon. Many of us would want to say, since I'm using biogas, it's going to be carbon neutral. Well, I would like to say that most of the biomass supply chains or biomass energy systems are not carbon neutral. And I will try to explain that now. The reason is that if there was a tree or a plant or source of biomass, if that was naturally decay, it would be sending all the CO2 to the atmosphere. And when you're growing that biomass again, it takes that CO2 and the cycle is complete. But what happens in a conversion system, and including that of biogas, you would have that biomass, but you will also be taking some energy from the grid. It could be in the form of electricity or kind of heating system. And what you emit is both the biogenic carbon as well as geologic carbon, which is coming from the fossil fuel. And what is taken back when the growth of biomass again is just the biological carbon. So in essence, you're emitting something extra to the environment. So I would restrain for saying that my process is carbon neutral, because very rarely processes are carbon neutral. But nonetheless, this doesn't overshadow the advantage of processes like biogas, because they have enough saving that can be done to the environment. This is the same example that I've given with respect to land use. Maybe I can skip this in the interest of time. But just to give an example, when you're growing biomass, there's huge amount of water, fertilizer, and pesticide going in. And this becomes important if you are producing biogas from energy crops, because all this would be accounted into your final product. And just to give an example, we sometimes overshadow the water requirement of the bioenergy processes. Herein, I'm given some of the typical use of water per megawatt hour of energy produced from the different sources. It's very less for petroleum products, somewhat higher for like nuclear plants, but it's very high for plants that consider bioenergy. Of course, we don't have biogas here, but since we need to dilute the manure, like if you're using cattle dung into 50-50 ratio by water, we can recycle a great amount of deal, but still we are using a great amount of water. So we need to understand like the water footprint is something that we need to be worried about as well. And when we are having different products, this is something that is typical of NLCA. How would you attribute the emissions? So let me give you a simple example. Say I have a unit process that is producing 20 kg of product A and 80 kg of product B, and the emissions are 1 kg. If I was to allocate that just on the basis of weight, it could be very simple. I allocate 20% of the emissions to product A and 80% of the emissions to product B. As simple as that. But what would happen if the economical value of the products is very different? This 20 kg of product can fetch me $900, and 80 kg of product is just fetching me $100. If I do an allocation on the basis of economics, the emissions will just get reversed. And this is something that happens when we are talking about bioenergy systems as well. Now, the byproduct we are going to use for a biogas production might have a high value in terms of the weight, but a very low value in terms of the economics. So different LCAs could have different assumptions, and this would make the results topsy-turvy. So you need to be careful and be consistent about the values that you're adopting in your LCA. So herein I'm just giving an example that we recently did at the university, and this was a typical LCA and for producing biogas. And so this is typical to the countries like us, the developing countries like India. And on the left-hand side, I have shown if I'm producing 1 kg of methane, so it's 1.33 meter cube of methane, 96% pure methane that is coming from biogas. And for every kg of methane or compressed biogas that I'm producing, I would be emitting around 2.89 kgs of CO2 into the atmosphere. Now, this is not less. This is something comparable to the traditional supply chains as well. The only advantage or a big advantage I'm getting is that my methane is coming from a renewable source. So I'm not showing this to do away that we don't have any advantage. I'm just wanting to show that we should be aware that there are emissions with respect to bioenergy systems as well. We shouldn't negate them upfront. But on the whole, if you see, they're much better than using fossil fuel-based resources. A similar case can be seen if I'm going to produce electricity, and if I'm going to produce 1 kilowatt hour, so this is 3.6 megajoules, which is 1 kilowatt hour of energy or 1 unit of energy, I would be emitting around 0.245 kgs of CO2 equivalent. And if I were to produce the same electricity in India, the emission would be 1.5. So I am reducing it almost by an order of magnitude, and that is huge. So one thing that is again a big concern in the biogas plants is methane. I wanted to highlight this, but maybe like the time that is available is a bit less, but I'll go through it quite fast. Now, methane is one of the greenhouse gases, which is responsible for 20% of the global warming impacts. And one of the reasons being the 1 kg of methane has a similar impact that would be there from 25 kgs of CO2. So if I emit 1 kg of methane into the atmosphere, it is equivalent to emitting 25 kgs of CO2. And this difference has a huge consequence. Whereas if I burn methane, it will take just 2 molecules of oxygen and produce 1 molecule of CO2. So it just remains 1 molecule of CH4 is equivalent to 1 molecule of CO2. The molecular weight not being very different, it's almost the same amount of that is contributing. So it's always benefit to burn methane, like to emit CO2 rather than emit methane. And when we are dealing with a plant that has methane in a huge quantity, we need to be worried about leakages. So this is a typical biogas supply chain. There could be different feedstocks. Then there would be transportation, there would be storage, digestion, then digester storage, it would be going to CHP and biogas upgrading. And all these places would have leakages. And if this methane leaks out of the process, this could have damaging effect to the overall sustainability of the plant. And this is something that is gaining prominence nowadays, that if we are going to look towards the sustainability of a biogas plant, we need to be very concerned about the methane leakages. That is normally going to happen in the storage phase or the digested storage or this biogas upgrading phase. I have all the slides that I've shared, and I would not want to go into right now in the interest of time. But there could be huge leakages. So some of the emissions, like there could be leakages of the height of like around 45% of the total methane that I am manufacturing or contributing. And then there could be huge kind of leakages in the digested storage as well as in the CHP. So this is something we need to be concerned when we are talking about the production of methane from biogas plant, because this is something that would affect the sustainability in the long run, and we need to be careful about it. Then let me introduce you, let me just briefly, this is a recent study that was done last year in China, and they have set up a huge plant in the Jing'an district. And the capacity was almost 6.57 million cubic meters per year. So this brings out around 18,000 meter cube a day. So that's a big, fairly big amount of plant. And if you go, and they did an LCA for that, and what they came out was, this was their methane emission reduction, because if the dung or the manure was left into the open atmosphere, it would be releasing methane anyway. If you're converting that into compressed biogas as well as electricity, you can do it with that, and you can save a good amount of CO2. So the yearly saving was 50,000 tons of CO2 equivalent, and that is huge. And this can gain you a good value if you are using some carbon trading mechanism as well. So this life cycle assessment becomes very essential if you want to trade in these emissions. And these emissions could be huge, as you can see in this case study that was just done last year in China. So this was with respect to the life cycle assessment. Now let's go towards the social aspects as well. Now social aspects means our life should be easy, it should be comfortable, I should be economically sound, I should have a respectable living. And these, I will just take you through some recent studies. So this was a study that was done 5 years back in Bangladesh, and that was done for the Satkhira district. And they were seeing the effect of installation of a biogas plant on the life of the rural population. And a direct effect was that people started using the biogas that was coming in. So there was a reduction in firewood, dung, agricultural residues, as well as LPG they were buying. So they had an economical saving. So they had a saving in terms of what they were paying, because they were nicely utilizing the cattle manure which they had in plenty for producing the gas. So this helped in increasing their economic status. Then there was another survey done at the same place, which was done for 250 families, if I remember correctly. And this is what their opinions were. So most of them were of the opinion that biogas gave them easy and comfortable cooking. It saves time and workload. They also got nutrient-rich fertilizers, economically beneficial. They had health benefits, and you can see the minimum and the maximum in here. So it was on the scale of 20, and a maximum amount of people were happy with that. They were not happy that some of them were not of the opinion that it's safe to use. So we need to be aware of that. And some of the demerits that were put forward during this social experiment was that it had problematic components, because if the plant is not operating, it becomes very difficult to start it again. Smell is an issue. People find it complex in operation. Then there were maintenance difficulties, and some of them also felt there was a high investment cost. But overall, if you see, the social benefits that people were getting in this particular district were will far outdo the demerits that it has. A similar study was done in Nepal, and this was also done very recently, and just 3 years back. And there they set up biogas plants, and this helped. And there was an analysis done, like, does it save any time? So, and this analysis shows like how much time was saved in firewood collection, cooking, as well as washing of utensils. And 85% of the people believed that there were at least 2 hours of saving throughout the day. So this saves you time, which you can use for your different recreational activities or improving a livelihood as well. So if you have a biogas plant in the area, this provides you a clean fuel and also saves you from traditional practices like firewood collection, which is still common in the rural areas. Again, in going back with the same studies, 80% of the people believed that this slurry has improved the agricultural production. So not only the biogas, but also the manure or the fertilizer, if used directly without upgrading, would have a very big effect in your field. And what to say if you make products like biochrome or others. So this is what people had to say, that they had dual benefit. First thing is they're getting clean fuel, and they're also getting good manure, which is helping them increase their farm productivities. Then let me also take you through another study that was done recently in Africa, in the country of Ghana. And they wanted to say, like, is the biogas plant that come up in the region helped in job creation? And the answer was yes. It helped creating a lot of skilled as well as unskilled jobs. And people were really happy with the setting up of the plants. So if these biogas plants are set up in rural areas, because this is a place where you have plenty of feedstock as well, this could be a source of job generation as well. And this is something that we can see from the study. And I would also like to share with you a small video that I myself recorded last year. So we were on a plant visit, and we would like to take you there tomorrow as well. And this is something I shot myself, and it's in Hindi, so I'll translate that for you. Okay, let me turn the sound.
मेरा नाम प्रेम कुमार, मैं गंडी खाता हरिद्वार का रहने वाला हूँ, और हम लगभग 4 साल से खेती कर रहे हैं, ऑर्गेनिक खेती। और ये लगभग हमारे पीछे जो देख सकते हैं आप, ये लगभग 10 बीघा की हमने धान और गन्ना की खेती की हुई है। और पहले इसमें हम रासायनिक खाद का इस्तेमाल करते थे, तो इतना अच्छा नहीं था रिजल्ट। और तब से जब से हम ये जैविक खाद इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं और दवाइयाँ, तब से उत्पादन लगभग डबल इसका हो गया है, और इसका कोई दुष्प्रभाव भी नहीं है। काफ़ी अच्छी फसल हमारी हो रही है।
So this person has been using organic farming, that is using the manure that is produced by a localized biogas plant. And it's a large scale biogas plant, almost 20 tons per day capacity. And he seems to be having very nice crops. The yield has almost doubled, and he is very happy with the use of this manure. And this is something that has been found in other places as well. And to sum up my presentation, another study was done in one of the African countries recently, and it was last year. and they try to quantify the environmental, economic, and the social benefits. And it seems that maximum percentage of people were happy with all the three fronts. People were happy that they were having less emissions, the waste has reduced, and it has slowed down the deforestation and degradation. Economically, it has reduced the energy cost. They're getting energy at a cheaper rate, and they're also having clean cooking society surroundings. Jobs are being created, and it's convenient. So if you take all the three matrices of sustainability, environment, economical, and social, biogas seems to be doing a good job. So with that, I would end this presentation and would be happy to take up any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pratham Arora, for your presentation. I think in interest of time, I would like to make a presentation on the behalf of our director, SARC Energy Center. He was not able to make the presentation due to some unavoidable circumstances. So, but again, he instructed me to share this the findings of this techno-economic viability specifically for this Karachi municipal solid waste. So I will be taking up his presentation, and it's just for a knowledge sharing basis. And of course, any comments or any inputs could be welcomed from the participants and also from the presenters. So let me share my screen. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Yes. Can anyone please tell me that whether my screen is visible or not?
Yes, Dr. Ali.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Right. So this is a short, sort of a preliminary, techno-economic analysis, a case study of Karachi municipal solid waste, and that has been conducted by our honorable director, Dr. Nawaz Ahmed Wake. I will be presenting on his behalf. So this is the sequence of presentation. We'll discussing about the characteristics of municipal solid waste and selection of waste to energy technology for MSW in Karachi and economic analysis, and then a sort of a conclusion. So the calorific or the heating value of MSW, as already of you have an idea that MSW, municipal solid waste, consists mainly of waste, paper, cardboard, food, organic material, mixed plastics, and textiles. So in 2016, the world city generated 2 billion tons of solid waste, that is equivalent to 1.2 kilograms per capita per day, and it is expected to rise by 70% by 2050, according to the World Bank. So the assessment of heating value of MSW is also important for efficient design and successful operation and maintenance of waste to energy facility. And heating value of MSW also depends on the waste characterization and composition and the percentage of course, the plastic, paper, textile, organic material, and moisture. So these are some of the heating values of municipal solid waste for different developing and developed countries. And if you can see in Bangladesh, it's around about 717. And then it is for India, it's around 800 to 1100. Correct me if I'm wrong. So for Sri Lanka, it's 950 to 1250. So we have taken this from various resources, and that's also available with us. So the status of municipal solid waste in Karachi. So Karachi, which is a very one of the biggest cities in Pakistan, and with a population of around 15 million, and it generates more than 13,500 tons of municipal solid waste per day. And at the moment, Karachi has three landfill sites, and handling 1 ton of municipal solid waste incur a cost of nearly USD 33 dollars per ton, according to the Sindh Solid Waste Management Board. And according to the Sindh Solid Waste Management Board, the indigenous waste laying open at the landfill sites of Karachi comprises of 54% organic matter. So these are waste of energy, as you already have known that it is one of the rapidly and fast growing technologies in the world, and mainly because it reduces the demand for landfills. It reduces demands on fossil fuels, it reduces environmental impacts, and also help us contribute towards the sustainable development goals. So these are some of the waste to energy technologies. When talk about the municipal solid waste, we have this biological conversion, landfilling, thermal conversion. Thermal conversion include the incineration, gasification, pyrolysis, and for the biological conversion, we have this anaerobic composting, and anaerobic digestion, and that actually produces this biogas, and that it leads to generation of the electricity or energy. So I don't want to go in detail to these various technologies, as I'm assuming that you already have the prior knowledge to that. Just for this anaerobic digestion, it's of course is like my colleagues have already explained that in their early presentations, that it's a process of microbial degradation of organic biodegradable matter in the absence of oxygen. So biogas is typically composed of 50 to 75% methane, 20 to 50% carbon dioxide, and 1 to 15% of other gases and vapors. So the produced sludge is also could be used for the fertilizer. So just I would like to, this is the slide I would like to show that these are some of the cost of different waste to energy technologies. I mean, that's been obtained from different resources. As you can see that for incineration, it's around 400 to 700 USD per ton of municipal solid waste per year, and the operational cost is around 40 to 70. Similarly, for anaerobic digestion, it's around 50 to 350, depending on the plant site and other, of course, other parameters. And operational cost is around varies from around 5 to 35 dollars ton of municipal solid waste per year. And moving ahead with this, that the selected waste to energy technology for Karachi is anaerobic digestion, mainly because it offers decentralization of energy and power generation. Rural and remote communities that are not connected to electricity grids are able to produce their own electricity. Just for the information purposes, in Pakistan, 23% of the population lack access to electricity. So once started and stabilized, the plant produces biogas on continuous basis, independent of external factors such as sun or wind. So it can produce 2 to 4 times more methane per ton of municipal solid waste in 3 weeks than that of a landfill in 6 to 7 years. So anaerobic digestion, about 150 kg of methane can be generated from 1 ton of municipal solid waste, considering 60% organic matter and 40% moisture content. So AD produces biogas rich in methane, and the major problem associated with this process is the long duration, typically 20 to 40 days of microbial reaction. So why anaerobic digestion for Karachi? Its effective incineration process requires average calorific value of municipal solid waste of at least 1700 calories, and then at least 1900 calories, according to the World Bank and International Energy Agency. So waste lying open at landfill site in Karachi comprises of 54% of organic content, as already mentioned. Also, this is selected that this technology has been proposed just for due to the lower fraction of combustibles and lower heating value due to the separation and scavenging, high moisture content, and high organic fraction. So this is the base case scenario, and if you can see that in the absence of any scientific data, rating calorific value municipal solid waste is taken around to be around 1400, and for calorific value of 1400, methane recovery is computed to be as 95 kgs per ton. of municipal solid waste, and for 500 tons of municipal solid waste per day, and for generation efficiency of 55% for combined cycle plant gives a capacity of 16.78 megawatts. So this is the financial and economic analysis according to the base case scenario. The parameters for calculation in this base case scenario is the calorific value, that is around 1400 as already discussed. The unit capital cost USD per ton of municipal solid waste per year is around 300. Unit operating cost is around 20. Interest rate, which normally as per the State Bank of Pakistan, we've taken around to be around 13%. And the tipping fees for this is around USD 10 per ton of municipal solid waste. While the generation efficiency, electricity generation efficiency is considered to be for the combined cycle, considered to be 55%. So, with the capital cost of USD 300 tons, considering the capital cost of USD 300 per ton per municipal solid waste per year is taken for the base case scenario. And so, considering a plant size of like 500 tons per for 500 tons per day of municipal solid waste, and plant capacity of 16.78 megawatts, the capital cost comes up to be USD around 54 million, and an annual operating cost is computed as USD 3.65 million per annum. So for this, if you can see that this is like I think already in previous slide, this has been we have covered it. So for this base case scenario, this is the tariff that has been for the municipal solid waste generation of electricity from the municipal solid waste is has been the upfront tariff given by the National Electric Power Regulatory Authority of Pakistan is around USD 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And considering the plant capacity of around 16 megawatts, the daily electricity sales is around, we consider around 40,000, and annual electricity sales of around 14.7 USD per million. So, and also, if you can see that there is an earning from the gate fee that is around 1.83, and the CO2 avoided per ton municipal solid waste is around 0.73 tons CO2 per municipal solid waste. So carbon credit, again, we have not considered for this, and but the total revenues per year that could be generated is around USD million 20 million USD per annum, uh, which is equivalent to around 3.17 millions per annum in Pakistan. I think this figure is somehow I doubt about it, but 20 million per annum will be. So the base case scenario, the benefit cost ratio is computed as 1.18, which shows that higher present value of the revenues than the present value of the costs incurred. And the project also indicates a positive NPV with internal financial rate of return of 15.95%, which is higher than the applicable discount rate of 13.25%. And these are the results that has already been shown. If you see that the NPV for these projects has come up to be around around 9.83 USD million, which is again it's very feasible. And also we have conducted this sensitivity analysis of the project, and the parameters for sensitivity analysis range of plus minus 20% with respect to parameters taken in the base case scenario, while the calorific value can go as low as 1260, and the upper value is taken to be 1540. And similarly, you can see that the unit capital cost for this is around for the low value it is around 270, and for upper value 330. Operating cost is around 18 and 22. Unit gate fees has taken account like 9 and 11, and electricity generation efficiency is for the combined cycle is taken to be 50 and 61%. So with this sensitivity analysis, we have seen that the effect of calorific value, I mean, for the taken lower value, if you see that for no, for a 1260 calorific value, you can see that the NPV comes up to be negative, and cost benefit ratio is less than one. The IR is also 12%. And but for the high calorific value, again, the project is feasible, and the NPV is positive, around 23 USD million, and the IR is around 19%. So similarly, with the effect of capital cost, if you see that for capital cost to be around 270 USD per ton of municipal solid waste per year, it comes up to be around it's positive, and whereas for the upper value, it is again not feasible. Um, Similarly, for the operating cost for this 18 USD per ton, if you see, then it is again it's feasible in both scenarios, like in the lower case and the upper case, and it is around 17% and 15% respectively. And the effect of tipping fees, if you see that for 9 USD for the lower value and 11 USD ton for the upper value, you can see again for the both scenarios, the cost benefit ratios less is more than one, and the NPV is also tells us that the project is feasible. Similarly, for the generation efficiency, if for the combined cycle, if it's lower than, like if it's 50% or something, the NPV is again shows that the project is not feasible. The cost benefit ratio is again 0.93, and IR is just 12%. And for the upper value, like if the capacity utilization factor is 60%, then again it comes up to be 19% of IR, and the cost benefit ratio is 1.42%, 42. So and for the collection fees, if you can see that the project is feasible if the project developer pays MS collection fees to a maximum of 20%, which is USD 33.4 per ton. Otherwise, the project become unfeasible if we go beyond that, right? So similarly, for the carbon credits, I mean, this has also been calculated, and you can see that for 5 USD per ton of CO2 reduction, if we see that the benefit ratio we calculate it, and it just seems that the project is very a much feasible. And even if we don't get any carbon credit, even then according to the base case scenario, the project is feasible. But if and again, for if we get 10 USD, again the IR increases. So basically, with the addition of these carbon credits, if we get I mean, the IR becomes more better with this. So, just to conclude and sum up this, this effective management of municipal solid waste is not only a social responsibility, but also an essential requirement to avoid environmental and health impacts. And worldwide, often municipalities supply a municipal solid waste to waste to energy plant free of cost, while in some cases they are also required to pay certain fee per ton of MSW treated by the plant operator in environment friendly manner, that is called gate free. Then waste to energy technologies provide an effective management of MSW in environment friendly manner, which has become essential to build sustainable and livable cities and achieve sustainable development goals. So this is all from my end, and we are open for any questions. Uh, yes, please. So, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we open to any questions from my presentation, or from if you'd like to ask something to to Professor Pratham Arora, so we're available here for any questions. And in case we don't have any further questions, then we can give you the questions, right? Okay, right. So we have one question from Mr. Redvanur Rahman. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Your presentation very excellent. Municipal oil waste. This is this project is running, yeah, in
No,
Karachi.
this is just an techno-economic analysis, that has been conducted, and the project is not yet running. Although there are various proposals that has come for this Sin Solid Waste Management Board, but somehow, I mean, due to some regulatory hitches, this project has not been able to materialize as yet. Yes, but since it's managing the municipal solid waste is a big issue in Karachi. So the government now is actually thinking on certain projects through which they could be able to utilize this municipal solid waste in a value-added way for generation of electricity.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Very. This is the study. Very innovative and excellent information. Same in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, capital in Dhaka, more density. There is a two landfill. That is the some 3 months ago. That is the goal. That is the in scenario very very bad scenario in the methane. That is a global warming. So government is a initiative. Same way there is a municipal waste in the um, um, very emergency way will be construct in Bangladesh. There is the in two places in Dhaka. There is a two municipal in the north and south. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
I
think
think
that your yeah.
Yes, I think the concept of landfill sites is actually, very much something which is nowadays in consideration, and in most of the places I've seen that these concepts is vanishing. So the governments there, or they are focusing more on the segregation of waste at source, making the transfer station. In Islamabad, our municipal authority has taken some really initiatives like developing the transfer stations, segregation source, and also to create some sort of an awareness, through this. But again, what I felt, and specifically in the case of Pakistan, we actually lack technical capacities. I mean, in terms of developing these waste to energy plants, and I think the localization of technology is not there. This is also one of the major issue that needs to be taken care of. Yes. So, any other questions from the participants? Okay. So, may I request the admin that if you can launch the quiz or share the link with the participants for the quiz?
Yeah, so that we will do. We will be sharing, and thank you, Dr. Ali, for the nice presentation.
Okay, wonderful. So, just I want to give sort of a glimpse for tomorrow, which is also the last day of our 5 days training. And tomorrow there will be some really good, interesting sessions that has been